right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the conferences. We are rating and ranking the Power 5 conferences. What we will eventually do in this series is we will take all the results from the Power 5 conference games against each other, the non-conference matchups in the regular season and postseason, and we will put them into context by not just saying, okay, the Pac-12 went 6-10 against the Big 12, the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 10. What did that 6-10 mean? Was that really good teams in the Pac-12 losing all those games to really bad teams in the other conferences? Were they fair matchups? The games need to be weighted based on seedings. All right, what we do before that is just a fun little exercise here, and we ask that you take part. So I am matching up all the conferences. I have seeded all the teams. So these are not my seedings based on how good I think the teams are. These are based on the actual standings in the conference. Seeding the teams based on conference record, of course, because that's the most relevant, not the non-conference record, because anybody can go play anyone they want. So some teams have really tough non-conference schedules. Some teams have easy non-conference schedules, but the conference schedule is much more accurate and fair and reflective of how good the teams are. So they're seeded based on conference record. Then if there's a tie, it's head-to-head. And then if they didn't play, then it goes to overall record. Okay, so we've got the SEC and the Pac-12. So check out the videos where I've matched up the Pac-12 versus the Big 12, the ACC, and the Big 10 to see how the Pac-12 fared. We are going to size up each and every matchup. Now we get to the Pac-12 in its last conference showdown against the SEC. All right, let's run them down, and let's keep in mind, of course, the SEC has 14 teams, the Pac-12 has 12, so therefore I've got to take 2 teams out of the SEC. The fairest way to do that is to take the top 4 in the SEC, take out a team, that was LSU, the 5th seeded team, then go with another 4, and then take out another team. That turned out to be Auburn, the 10 seed, and then take the last 4 teams in the SEC. All right, let's run them down, and this is a 10-game series. I've explained in the past that instead of just saying who would win this game, well, obviously some of the matchups are fairly easy to decide who would be the big favorite and the much better team. But in some of the matchups, most of the matchups, because they're seeded equally, most of the matchups are very even. Therefore, it's a coin flip. So instead of just making it a coin flip or saying somebody's better here, but are they that much better? Then it's the discrepancy between the two teams is better reflected in a 10-game series score, if you follow me there. Alabama taking on Washington. The poor Huskies had to face Oklahoma, Ohio State, Alabama, and Clemson. And they lost to Clemson 9-1. They lost to Ohio State 7-3, and I believe the Oklahoma was 7-3 or 8-2. Check out the video. Alabama beats Washington 9-1. Washington State and Georgia, despite what we saw out of the Bulldogs in the Big 12 championship game, or in the Sugar Bowl, we know better. Georgia's a much better football team, more talented than Washington State. They win that series 8-2. Utah and Kentucky's an interesting matchup. I think the talent on the rosters is fairly comparable, although Mark Stoops is recruited better in the recruiting rankings. This Kentucky team was probably the most underrated team in college football this year. Every week, I would rank them where I believed they had earned that ranking, and every week, more than any other team, I got bashed about ranking Kentucky so high. What did they do? They went out and beat Florida by 2 scores on the road. Then they came home and they took on South Carolina, and they were an underdog again. They won that game and held the Gamecocks to 10 points. Then they took on a really good Mississippi State team. What did they do there? They were a 10-point underdog. They won 28-7. The games that they lost, yeah, they had the one downer against Tennessee. They lost to Texas A&M on the road at Kyle Field, one of the more difficult places to play, where Clemson only won by 2, and they took Texas A&M to overtime. They beat Missouri, and then they beat Penn State. They were an underdog again in the bowl game, and I was not surprised. They beat Penn State to finish 10-3 and in the top 10 in the country. So I'm a bit conservative here. Of course, Kentucky doesn't score much. They did eke out a number of wins 14-7 over Vandy, 15-14 over Missouri. So Kentucky wins this one 6-4. Utah's a very good team. Let's also keep in mind that Utah was missing its starting quarterback, running back, and best wide receiver against Northwestern in the Holiday Bowl. These teams are fully stocked and healthy with their 2018 rosters. All right, Stanford, Florida, interesting matchup there. Gators win at 6-4. Again, LSU's out. Oregon takes on Texas A&M. And if there's one matchup here that I would probably like to see more than the others, if I had one game to see, I think it would be Oregon and Texas A&M. I think that would be an entertaining game. I'm leaning Aggies here 6-4. Almost went 5-5. Arizona State taking on Mississippi State. The Bulldogs defense gets it done. I'm giving Arizona State some credit here at 6-4. This might be a 7-3 series, actually. You know what? Let's go 7-3 Mississippi State. Mississippi State beats Arizona State 7 out of 10 times. Cal and Missouri. I'm throwing it out there as a 5-5 series. That one is difficult to determine. USC, even though they did not have the season that South Carolina had, the two USCs playing here. South Carolina finished 7-5. Then they got blown out by Virginia in the Belk Bowl, 28-0. So I believe it was the Belk Bowl or the Tax Slayer Bowl, 28-0. And USC, even though they only won 5 games, watch the game against Notre Dame. They show that it's still USC talent. They played Notre Dame down to the last 4 or 5 minutes. I got it 5-5. Arizona, Vandy, interesting series. I trust Vandy much more. If you watch the Vandy team that played Baylor in an exciting bowl game, I just think Arizona just is a sieve on defense, and they lose this 6-4. Tennessee stronger than UCLA. I go with the SEC athletes in this one, 6-4. As UCLA, really, they played much better down the stretch, but not that much better. Colorado loses to Ole Miss 6-4. And you got Oregon State and Arkansas. Arkansas really was an awful SEC team. Usually the worst, the very worst team in the SEC isn't that awful. Not typically like Rutgers, Kansas awful, Oregon State awful. But this Arkansas team was close. Now, they played a little bit better after they stumbled early against the likes of North Texas, losing by 24 points to North Texas, losing to Colorado State, another group of 5 out of conference. So Arkansas was clearly the worst team and the most embarrassing out-of-conference games for the SEC. But they do defeat Oregon State. Again, I'm going to go with SEC talent winning this 6-4. So with the Mississippi State addendum at 7-3 over Arizona State. It's a pretty commanding win for the SEC over the Pac-12 at 76-44 as they play 120 games. That's 12 teams and 12 matchups, 10 games each, 120 games. So keep this in mind. If this doesn't tell you what's wrong with college football, how many times did they actually play the SEC and the Pac-12 this year? 1 time. Auburn, Washington, a neutral site in Atlanta. Of course, Auburn had the big advantage there, but Tigers defeated the Huskies. Very close game. I remember watching every play of that game. Very close game. Now, Auburn turned out to just be a 10 seed in the SEC. I don't know if that was really reflective of their ability and their talent on that roster. It's not. They are better than that, but 3-5 in the SEC, and so that looks really good for the SEC, that one game, because Auburn turned out to be a marginal team in the SEC at 7-5, 8-5 with the bowl win, 3-5 in the conference. Washington won the Pac-12, and they couldn't beat Auburn. But just one game. Wouldn't you like to see Stanford and Florida play, or Oregon and Texas A&M? Washington State, Georgia might be an interesting game. All right, there it is. SEC dominant over the Pac-12. Would love to get your results. Let us know in 120 games right there who would win the matchup and by how much, or the individual matchups here. Or what games would you like to see? Not just these matchups, but would you like to see Georgia play Oregon or Florida play Washington State or whatever it is? Right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, where we break it down, discuss, analyze, and debate college football like nobody else. right here. Please use the Amazon links in the description section to support the channel. So just go and do your regular Amazon shopping as you typically will. You don't need to buy anything that I'm displaying. What you do is you just use the links there, one of the links in the description section to enter Amazon. You're all set, and you help us out here. And of course, when we do super chats during our live streams, please, I would ask that you donate. And if you want further clarification on why it's important to support us, if you love what we do, then watch the video that I posted just a few days ago. It was actually a live stream for about 90 minutes with my closest friends right here and supporters of the channel, where we talked about the vision of Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, and where we're headed. All right, get to this. Leave some comments. Subscribe and like as well. Share the video. Get it out there. Right here, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football.